Hello, how you doing? I'm glad you're here. It's Gummy. I've caught myself at this ripe age of 26 years old really being critical of my daily habits. That isn't to say that my mindset's always entirely negative about this idea, but still, I always get a nagging feeling when I look at some of my habits. Sure, I could be more consistent with my bedtime or my diet, but trying to find that balance with discipline and enjoyment is one of the many hills that life is planned for us to climb. I'm not unique with that problem, and usually with that fact alone, I can give myself a little grace. One habit that I seem to really be critical about, however, is my level of consumption. I'm not really talking about consumption of food, but rather my consumption with media. Not just any specific medium either, just media in general. Obviously, the phone has been designed to be a perfect gateway to distractions. However, I haven't had social media platforms such as Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram on my phone for nearly a whole year, which is awesome in my opinion, but why do I still feel this guilt rising? And maybe even worse than I did when I had those apps on my device. To my demise, I still have YouTube, and with that, YouTube Shorts. It's like a TikTok, Instagram Reels 3.0. And it spark the idea for this video though. Here I am, putting myself on some sort of mental high ground based on the fact that I'm not attached to brain rot on TikTok, when I'm literally doing the exact same dopamine feeding habit, sitting and scrolling with videos tailored to my interests with YouTube Shorts. Another one bites the dust of the algorithm, and as I sit here, I can feel that little itch just to grab my phone out of the habit itself. No rhyme or reason. The algorithm has its claws deep in my dopamine receptors, but I know I'm not the only one. This whole thought line made me take a step back. How do we combat this dilemma of overconsumption? How do we train ourselves in our brain to not sound the alarms when dopamine isn't being flooded in every single moment? And before I continue with this, I don't want to give the impression that I'm about to be anti-tech or anti-social media or anti-consumption. I'm not going to say that you need to have your moment in the forest where you are completely isolated from society to go find yourself. While I understand those possible benefits, I think a lot of the advice for this problem comes from people with way too much time on their hands. And if I want to keep it true to myself, I'm going to talk to the average Joe, your 9-to-5 employee that just wants to be a bit more mindful about their consumption. There's a lot of science as to why we consume, and to be frank, while interesting, I don't have the time or true knowledge to give you a better understanding. A lot of my knowledge is based on YouTube videos, so if you want the concrete science, this may not be the video for you. But I do want to work out the reasons as to why we consume, almost in a conversational tone. If you are around my age, mid to late 20s, you probably had a glimpse of life without the need for immediate dopamine hits with technology. We didn't grow up in the Stone Age by any means. As, you know, one of my prized possessions of my childhood was my PlayStation 2. God, I love that thing. But we didn't really grow up with all this tech surrounding us or straight in our pockets. Not until our junior high years. For me specifically, my first phone is now what they call a dumb phone. And while I was privileged and trusted to have one, it didn't have any fancy apps. I texted friends and I called my parents, and that was all there was to it. It was a pretty big deal to have a phone at my age. And if it wasn't a phone that changed the game, let's talk about the iPod Touch. This little screen in the pocket was revolutionary, and looking back now, I don't know if it was for the better or for worse. I could play Cut the Rope, Fruit Ninja, and somewhat text my friends if I was connected to solid enough Wi-Fi. It was an upgrade of a dumb flip phone, but still, the internet wasn't so woven into these devices quite yet. Then came the iPhone. That was a big moment in my youth. I received one freshman year of high school, thanks to all the mowing I did that summer, and wow, what a rush. I could text, I could game, and listen to music. Who could imagine? This led to a deepening connection with my technology. Shortly after that, I finally got an Xbox 360 that could connect to the internet. I was finally fully connected on the go and at home. Looking back, I haven't been disconnected since. I was always on social media apps and messaging during school. And when I got home, I would connect with friends to play some Halo Reach or Call of Duty, consuming, and consuming. I tried creating. When I was little, I would create mini stop-motion Lego movies with my mom's camera. Move the Lego, take a picture. Move it a little bit more, take a picture. And when I got older around high school, I created little montage videos with my friends in GTA 5. I tried then, at that point, to do a commentary channel like I'm doing now. And then in college, I started making music. And while I found enjoyment in the process, I would find myself at the same dead end. I'd be stuck in the mud, looking and waiting for results that would never come. Looking back now, I never understood why I would fall out of these mini passion projects. I generally arrive to a point where I wouldn't find them amusing or entertaining. Not only that, I would be comparing. And honestly, that may have been the nail to the grave, or nail to the coffin, when it came to my creation habits. A lot of the time, I would create out of spontaneity. I didn't plan too hard, but once I would get a rhythm of creation, I would almost become bored. Then that boredom would lead to a focus on analytics or numbers, views, likes, subscribers, when in reality, that was never the reason I started creating. I started creating because I wanted to attempt to get my voice outside of myself. I started creating to hopefully make someone or laugh or feel something. And as I write this, I realize that this is something so pure that I always seem to lose when I start comparing or focusing on the performance of the product. After a long backstory in my creation journey, I figured it would give you enough of a glimpse as to the roadblocks I have run into along the way. Now, don't get the wrong impression that I have it all figured out, because I don't. I am just starting to realize that whenever I am producing a little rather than always consuming, I always feel a little bit better, a lot more fulfilled, if I'm going to be honest. So why is that? Why are the moments in my life when I am in a creative producing state are moments that I look back fondly on? Why do I always feel so sluggish when I watch more YouTube than my average amount of creating? I guess that's what I hope to discuss. I think the easiest reason to explain why we consume is, well, it's easy, like way too easy. No matter if it is on our phone, on a TV, or simply reading, the activity of consumption is quite literally easy. We can sit there, passively scroll, turn our brain off without moving our bodies whatsoever. So no wonder we like to consume. It's easy, both physically and mentally. To get a little more deep, consuming gives us instant gratification. Now, obviously, your form of consumption matters quite a bit. On your phone, it is super easy to get that quick fix of dopamine. You sit around, bored, brain craving dopamine. Then bam, you start scrolling. Dopamine junkies are everywhere, and sadly, it is super hard to escape. With the convenience factor, like mentioned earlier, our brain knows where it can get instant gratification. Another reason, and the one I can deeply relate to, is the feeling of overwhelm or choice fatigue. For my job, I'm making so many decisions every second. By the time I get home, I just don't want to anymore. Throughout your day, you make a lot of decisions, and based on the convenience, and during these days we lack dopamine, our decision-making fuel tank is empty. We want to consume. It's natural. It's easy. We're tired, simply put. I relate to all these too well, and maybe you do too. Not only may you see yourself in these situations, but you also may be wondering, how do I get out of this rut? Is there something wrong with me? No, there is a way to combat this issue, and it's simple as you want it to be. It is to create. Create what? Well, frankly, I can't answer that for you, but what I can try to answer is the why. Why should you create? First off, it can improve mental and emotional growth. Creation builds up the feeling of self-efficacy, critical thinking, and resilience. You think about it. When creating, it is fun and engaging at first, but you may get burned out. Sticking with this idea of creating can reinforce that you have original thoughts, original creativity, and in return give you a stronger sense of self. I know that whenever I'm done with the script, I feel accomplished and in some ways vindicated. I got something done, and even if it was a tad challenging, I still got to the finish line. Second point, it helps you engage deeper than a consumer. I tend to listen to self-help podcasts and read some self-help books on the side. Getting those ideas are always great, but until I physically write about my own ideas, I understand that I am engaging with what I consume a lot more when I create from that source of inspiration rather than just passively consume. Your creative desires may lead you down a path of deeper learning without intentionally setting off on that route. Another route you may unintentionally begin is the route of impacting others. We diminish all we have to say because society tells us that without monetary wealth or a huge social prowess or influence, our words, thoughts, opinions don't have weight. In reality, the thing that you have been itching to create could be something that impacts somebody. It doesn't have to be profound to make a difference, but just imagine how you would feel if you impacted just one single person's life simply because you created something. That feeling in itself might be worth it for some of you, but this last aspect of creation is what I believe is the biggest benefit of creation. Fulfillment. I know you can possibly put that under the umbrella of mental and emotional growth, but I feel that fulfillment deserves its own category. The one thing that modern consumption culture does extremely well, it gives you the sweet nothings or a drive to keep wanting more. That must mean whatever we consume truly does not give us a sense of fulfillment. It isn't until we produce, we hunker down, we do what our mind is yearning for us to do, to create, that we feel a sense of fulfillment. It could be filming a vlog, writing a page or two of a journal, chipping away at some poems, taking that picture during the evening, whatever it may be. But your brain will have this sense of fulfillment knowing you took that step to create. All of these reasons are mainly used to say that creating will leave you with positive benefits. I'm not trying to say that you should be a hermit and live with no consumption allowed. Frankly, I would say that's nearly impossible nowadays. But what I will say is that once you start putting an emphasis on creation, a tiny bit a day, you will start to see the results pile up. Since creating this YouTube channel, I do feel a sense of fulfillment. I don't really have a purpose for anything other than to challenge myself, engage with the topics I'm interested in, and hopefully make an impact with one or two viewers. I will try to not get caught up in metrics and numerical success when it comes to results. You should create for what it can give you. You should create for what it can teach and develop and show all the greatness that's within you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate your support. Make sure to drop a like, and if you want to hear more uplifting videos, drop a subscription, would ya? All right. Thank you guys. Have a great one.